So good morning. So I have a couple of stories. One was about Abe. He was a poor tailor whose shop was next door to a, I guess, 4-star Michelin restaurant. Is it 4-star for Michelin restaurants? Anyway, every day for lunch, Abe would eat his black bread and herring in the small garden at the back of the shop. He would always smell the wonderful odors coming from the restaurant next door, the kitchen there. And one day the restaurant sent him an invoice. Abe went to see the manager to ask why, and the manager said, well, you know, you're enjoying my food, so you should pay for it. And Abe refused to pay, and then the restaurant sued him. And at the hearing, the judge asked the restaurant to present their side of the story. Well, they said, every day this man comes and he sits near the kitchen and visibly smells our food while eating his. We are obviously adding value to his cheap meal, and we deserve to be recompensed for it. The judge then asked Abe, and what do you have to say about that? Abe said nothing, but he stuck his hand into his pocket. He rattled around with the coins he had inside, and the judge asked him, what's the meaning of that? And Abe replied, I am paying for the smell of his food with the sound of my money. One more. Izzy was the proud co-owner of the local dry cleaners. One day during dinner, while he was finishing up his chicken soup, his 9-year-old son Sam said, Dad, what's ethics? And Izzy thought for a while and put down his spoon, looked at Sam, and he said, okay, let's suppose somebody comes into the dry cleaners and they give me his business suit to dry clean, and then suppose I find a $20 bill in his pocket. And Sam looked expectantly at his dad, and then Izzy said, to answer your question, Sam, do I tell my partner I found the money? That's ethics. How many people are fans of Randy Cohen? Do you know who he is, the ethics writer? And he writes for the Tacoma News Tribune. And, you know, I've graduated from Dear Abby to Dear Randy. Randy is an ethics writer, and so he answers people's questions about what should I do? You know, what should I do? I saw my best friend, or should I tell my best friend that I saw her husband out to dinner with another woman? You know, that kind of, oh heavens. You'd like some deeper questions, but sometimes that's what people ask, and sometimes they're more complex issues. But ethics are all about what is the right thing, you know? And sometimes we have questions about that, don't we? I mean, sometimes it's not a problem, it's not an issue, but sometimes you really need Randy. Do I return the ring? And how do I say this to my boss? So Randy provides sage advice, and I really appreciate that because he lives in a world that's not black and white, and we all live in that world that's not black and white. In the world where most of us grew up, there have been guidelines for acceptable behavior, be they laws or commandments or standards of conduct. Buddhism, if you're not familiar with it, or if you are, sets out what's called the eightfold path of behavior. You know, in Buddhism, it's the very first tenet of Buddhism is that there's dukkha, which is suffering, and that suffering can be prevented or at least lessened if we would just follow this eightfold path. And there are 8 kind of tenets of 8 kinds of behaviors, and one of them is right speech. And it's explained in negative terms. The guideline is to avoid 4 types of harmful speech. And you don't have to write this down because you can listen to it later. But lies, of course we know that. We should avoid lying. Words that are spoken with the intention of misrepresenting the truth. Or divisive speech. Words that are spoken with the intention of creating a problem between people. Or harsh speech. Words that are spoken with the intention of hurting feelings, or idle chatter, spoken with no intention at all. I am guilty of it. So I thought I would bring this along. This is my reminder to wake up, Sherry. And sometimes when I'm on the phone, you know, I just notice this sitting right next to me, and it's my reminder to be mindful in my speech. especially at soccer tournaments where I was yesterday. You know, you're at soccer tournaments with a bunch of soccer moms and soccer dads, and they're yelling and they're screaming, and in between times they're just talking about nothing at all. You know, it's just kind of refreshing in some ways, but I find myself, you know, lapsing into nothing at all speech. So mindful speech has been on my mind. One American Buddhist writer notes that the practice of right speech intersects with the training of the mind, which is what Buddhism is all about. Before you speak, you focus on why you want to speak. Do you just like the sound of your voice, you know? Or is there something that you really want to impart? And this helps us get in touch with the gymnastics that go on with the committee in your head. You know, the committee in your head that's they're running your mind, they're running your life. And if you see any unskillful motives that are lurking behind the committee decisions, then you have veto power. You just say, I'm not going to say that. I don't need to say that. And it's so lovely, you know. For those of us who practice meditation or strive to be more mindful, you know, the whole trick is that there's something that happens and then there's a response. And there's time in between. Isn't that what it's all about? It's like something happens, somebody says something, something goes down in your life, and instead of having an immediate, you know, response with Miss Chatterbox here, you just wait and then respond. So this is all about mindfulness. So you become more aware of yourself, more honest with yourself, more disciplined with yourself. You know, part of being a grown-up is to have a little bit of discipline about how we respond and react to other people, isn't it? I mean, I hate that. But that's the way it goes. You know, if you want to be a grown-up, you have to take some space and make grown-up decisions and say grown-up words. I remember one time I had a friend who was going into a meeting, and the little girl inside of her was wanting to run the show, you know, kind of jump up and down the stage and run amok. And my friend was so nervous. She was going into a meeting with a committee. And she told her little girl, she said, now listen, I'm the adult here, and you're going to have to sit in the chair outside this meeting room. When I come back, I'll take you out for ice cream. But you have to behave yourself. Now, I'm talking about the little girl within, right? And she just said, you know, whatever ice cream you want, but you sit here and be quiet until I finish the meeting because there's no place for you in there. And it worked for her that day. So you save yourself from saying things that you'll later regret. And you won't get the job if you let the 4-year-old be in charge of the job interview. You just won't. We Christians have been given guidance for thousands of years, and our dear Apostle Paul wrote to the Ephesians, let no evil come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for edifying, as fits the occasion, that it may impart grace to those who hear. So words of kindness. And then secondly, let there be no filthiness, no silly talk, nor levity, which are not fitting, but instead let there be thanksgiving. The book of Proverbs contains much about right speech, suggesting that we can either knock people down or build them up with lies, flattery, gossip, and cursing. Actually, you knock them down with that and build them up with mindful speech that is good and timely and controlled. So we know that we can make or break a conversation with our speech, right? I mean, we've all had the experience of, you know, feeling at ease, kind of relaxed, you kind of crack a joke, you say something that was intended to be funny, and it just kind of goes over like a lead balloon, you know? For instance, the other night I was at a club, which I really never do, so I don't have very good club manners. And I was with some friends, and I really don't do this. I can't even think of the last time I did was it was over a year ago. Anyway, there was really great music going on, and you know how it is. You decide to meet some friends, and where do you go? To this loud club where you can't hear each other, and then you scream at each other trying to talk. I mean, why didn't we go have tea, you know, and sit in a coffee shop someplace? But no, instead we were yelling across the table. So anyway, there we were, and we were trying to talk, and my friend says to me, well, there's a glass of wine here. It's an extra glass of wine. Would you like it? Because I wasn't going to order anything right away. And